The heat wave breaks, your AC blows warm, the outdoor unit just hums. Then, on that same afternoon, a contractor quotes $16,000 for an $8 part they pray you don't know about. Think of the capacitor as a jump-start battery for your compressor and fan motor. It stores an electrical jolt, then releases it to get those motors spinning. A dual-run capacitor handles both at once. No jolt, no spin. The motor just sits there humming, like a stalled car nobody's pushing. It was last July, and your air conditioner was grinding through a 105-degree afternoon without a break. That's exactly where this failure begins. Heat is the #1 enemy of a run capacitor, and here's the mechanism nobody explains at the door. Inside that little metal can is a dielectric, a thin insulating material that lets the capacitor store and release charge. Sustained high ambient temperatures degrade that dielectric. Every hour your unit bakes in triple-digit heat, the material breaks down a little more. It's not dramatic. It's slow, invisible, and relentless. Now add continuous cycling. During a heat wave, your compressor and fan aren't taking breaks. They're running non-stop, pulling electrical load hour after hour, day after day. Every single start pulls a surge through that capacitor. Multiply that by a 2-week heat wave, and you've got tens of thousands of extra cycles, stacked onto a part that was already cooking. Here's the number that matters. A run capacitor is a wear item, not a lifetime part. Most are rated for a service life of around 10 to 20 years under normal conditions, but sustained heat can cut that to 5 years or less. Read that again. A part rated for 2 decades can die in 5 when it's pushed through repeated 100-degree loads. And they don't fail politely. They fail at peak demand, the exact moment your system is working hardest, in the hottest week of the year, when the dielectric is most stressed and the cycling is most brutal. That's not coincidence, that's physics. Maximum heat plus maximum load equals maximum stress on the weakest component. That was only round 1. Because here's the part that makes people feel crazy. Your unit often doesn't die during the heat wave itself. It dies the week after the heat breaks. When temperatures drop, the compressor tries to restart after a short rest, and the degraded capacitor finally can't deliver the jolt. The damage was done during the peak. The failure just shows up on the cool down. If your capacitor had held on through one more mild week, this would be a very different story. Instead, that slow dielectric breakdown from the heat wave would come back to haunt your wallet. But that's getting ahead of the story. Picture standing in your backyard next to the outdoor unit. You hear it, a low, steady hum, but the fan blade on top? Dead still. That single image, humming without spinning, is the loudest confession a capacitor can make. Here's what's happening mechanically. The motor is getting power. It wants to turn. But without that stored jolt from the capacitor, it can't overcome the inertia to start rotating. So it sits there drawing current and buzzing, generating heat, going nowhere. Inside your house, the same failure shows up as air blowing out the vents that's warm or barely cool because the compressor outside never engaged. Then there's the compressor's own tell. Listen closely and you'll hear it try to start. A strain, a low growl, followed by a hard click as an internal overload switch cuts it off to protect itself. That start, strain, click cycle is called hard starting, and it's a direct symptom of a capacitor that can't deliver enough microfarads to fire the compressor cleanly. Now walk up and actually look at the part. On many failures, you'll see physical proof. The top of the capacitor can, normally flat, is domed, bulging upward like an overshaken soda. Sometimes there's an oily residue or crust where the seal has ruptured and the internal fluid has leaked out. A bulging or leaking top is 100% visual confirmation, no multimeter required. Here's the number that should stop you cold. Every one of these symptoms, the humming fan, the warm air, the hard start click, the swollen top, points to a part that costs between $8 and $30. Not a new compressor, not a new coil, not a $16,000 system, an $8 can with 2 terminals on top. And this is exactly the gap the industry lives in. The symptoms are dramatic. The unit looks completely dead. To a scared homeowner in 95-degree heat, a silent, non-cooling AC feels like a catastrophic failure, a whole system emergency. But the actual root cause is almost embarrassingly small. That mismatch between how bad it feels and how cheap the fix really is, that's the entire business model of the upsell. The symptoms scream disaster. The repair whispers $8. And someone is counting on you only hearing the scream. There's a script contractors run, and it opens with one line. Honestly, your unit's just too old. It's not really worth fixing. Say that to a sweating homeowner, and you've already planted the seed. This is the upsell playbook, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Here's how the mechanism works. Step 1 is the diagnosis fee, often $75 to $150 just to show up and point at the capacitor. Step 2 is the part markup. That $8 to $30 capacitor gets billed at $50, $80, sometimes $120. Stack the fee, the inflated part and padded labor, and the simple repair quote lands anywhere from $150 to $450 for 20 minutes of work. But the real money isn't in the repair, it's in the pivot. And then the contractor made the one decision that changed everything. They stopped selling you a fix and started selling you fear. I could replace the capacitor, but on a system this age, you'll be back in a month. You're better off replacing the whole unit. That aging system pretext is the doorway to a $6,000 to $16,000 replacement. Now look at the conditions they're working in. It's 98 degrees. Your house is 85 inside and climbing. You've got kids or pets or elderly parents. You're uncomfortable, anxious, and desperate for it to just be over. Fear plus heat plus discomfort equals pressure to sign fast, before you've had time to get a second opinion, before you've looked up what the part actually costs. Here's the number that exposes the whole game. The failure that triggers a $16,000 quote is frequently the identical failure that a fair tech fixes for $200. Same symptom, same root cause. A price difference of roughly 8,000%, determined entirely by who you called and whether you knew the part existed. That's the trap. Manufactured urgency turning an $8 problem into a 5-figure decision. I want to hear yours. Drop your worst repair or replacement quote in the comments below, the number a contractor tried to scare you into. Let's see how deep this goes. Let's put the real numbers on the table, side by side, because that's where the whole illusion collapses. The part itself, $8 to $30 online. A universal dual-run capacitor from a hardware store or online supplier rarely breaks $30 even for a quality brand. Now the fair professional repair. A reasonable, honest tech charges somewhere between $150 and $250 total, and that includes their diagnostic fee, the part, and labor. Why does a $30 part become a $200 bill? Because you're paying for a licensed person, their truck, their time, and a fair margin. That's legitimate. That's not the scam. Here's what puts it in perspective. This is a 20-minute job. Cut power, discharge the old cap, photograph the wiring, swap 2 or 3 leads, mount the new one, restore power. 20 minutes. Most of the charge is labor rate and markup, not the component. So when a bill hits $450, you're not paying for parts. You're paying for the gap between what they charged and what it cost. That 20-minute reality was a warning sign. Most homeowners ignored it. They assumed a dead-looking AC meant a big, complicated repair. It usually doesn't. Replacement, the full $6,000 to $16,000 system, is only worth it when the compressor is genuinely mechanically dead. And a bad capacitor does not mean a bad compressor. That's the sleight of hand. Compare it directly, an $8 fix versus a $16,000 unit for the exact same warm air humming unit symptom. So when is replacement actually legitimate? When you've got a confirmed compressor failure, when there's a real refrigerant leak in a sealed system that isn't cost-effective to repair, or when your unit runs the old R22 refrigerant, which was phased out and now costs a fortune per pound, making a total replacement the smarter 10-year math. Those are real reasons. It's old is not. Know the difference, and no one can turn your $8 problem into their $16,000 payday. Now here's where you take the power back into your own hands, literally. You can test this part yourself and know the truth before a single contractor opens their mouth. It costs less than a tank of gas and takes about 5 minutes. Start with the label. Printed on the side of that metal can is a rated value in microfarads, written as UF or MFD. A common dual-run capacitor reads something like 45 plus 5 UF, meaning 45 for the compressor, 5 for the fan. Write that number down. It's the benchmark everything else gets measured against. Now grab a multimeter, a basic one runs $20 to $40, and set it to capacitance mode, marked with that same UF symbol. With power off and the capacitor safely discharged, touch the probes to the terminals and read the display. A healthy capacitor reads within about 6% of its rated value. So a 45 UF cap should read roughly 42 to 48. Here's the tell. If it reads well below rated, say your 45 UF cap shows 12 or 8 or a dead 0, that's a confirmed failure. The dielectric broke down, the storage capacity collapsed, and it can no longer deliver the jolt. The number doesn't lie. And you don't even always need the meter. Remember the visual check. A bulging top or corrosion crusting the terminals is confirmation on its own. A domed can is a dead can. That's your free diagnosis, standing in the backyard. A 5-minute test versus a $16,000 quote. Dry understatement of the year. So yeah, not great odds for the upsell. The point is this. Once you've read the label, checked the meter, and eyeballed the can, you know. You walk into that conversation with facts, not fear. You're no longer the scared homeowner in the heat. You're the person holding the evidence. But knowing it's broken is only half the battle, because everything the contractor had built their pitch on was about to work against them. Replacing a capacitor is genuinely simple, but it can also hurt you badly if you skip one step. So read this section like your safety depends on it, because it does. Rule 1, and it's non-negotiable. Cut the power at both places. Flip the disconnect box on the wall next to the outdoor unit and shut off the breaker at your main panel. Both, not one. A capacitor sits downstream of switches that don't always kill it, so you cut power at 2 points to be certain. Rule 2, and this is the one people learn the hard way. A capacitor stores charge even after the power is off. It can hold a jolt for minutes or longer, and it bites, hard enough to hurt you. So you discharge it first, carefully bridging the terminals with an insulated screwdriver before your fingers ever go near the metal. Capacitors don't care that the breaker's off. Rule 3, match the specs exactly. Same microfarad rating, that 45 plus 5, and same voltage rating, usually 370 or 440 volts. Trusted brands like Amrad, Gentech, and Titan Pro make reliable replacements for well under $30. Match the numbers, not the color or the shape. Now, before you remove a single wire, photograph the wiring. Take 3 clear shots from different angles so you know exactly which lead goes on HERM, fan, and common. On most units, it's a straightforward 2 or 3 wire swap. Pull the old, mount the new, reconnect by your photo. Now, you could have stopped there and called it a day. Some people don't want to touch anything electrical, and that's completely valid. Here's the honest take. If you're unsure, a Fairtech charging $150 to do this safely is still an enormous win. $150 versus $16,000 isn't a close call. Whether you do it yourself or hand it off, the price ceiling just dropped from 5 figures to lunch money. Step back and look at what really happened here. The heat wave didn't beat you. The physics of a failing capacitor is normal, predictable, cheap to fix. What almost beat you was the pricing scheme built on top of it. The fear, the markup, the "it's too old" pivot. That's the reframe. Your enemy was never the weather or the age of your unit. It was information asymmetry, them knowing what an $8 part does and betting that you never would. Here's the mechanism of your protection now. 1 part, 1 5-minute test. That's the entire line separating the informed homeowner from the exploited one. On one side, you nod along to a $16,000 quote because you're scared and hot. On the other, you read the label, check the meter, and say, "No thanks, it's the capacitor." And the numbers make it permanent. Once you know a run capacitor costs $8 to $30, that a fair repair tops out around $250, and that a bulging top confirms it for free, you cannot be scared into $16,000 ever again. That knowledge doesn't expire. It protects you every summer, on every unit, for the rest of your life. So here's the full sequence, locked in. Symptoms first: humming unit, still fan, warm air, hard start clicks, a swollen can. Then the test. Read the UF, meter it, eyeball it. Then the fair price, $30 part, $150 to $250 installed. Then the decision: cheap fix now, or replacement only if the compressor's truly dead or you're stuck on old R22. That's the whole playbook, reversed and handed to you. We do this every episode, take one specific HVAC cost and run the honest 10-year math the industry hopes you skip. Subscribe now so the next hidden cost we expose lands in your feed before a contractor lands in your driveway. Let's zoom out to the number that ties this whole scheme together, because item 8, the $8 capacitor, is a case study in how home cost manipulation actually works. There's a reason this story is still talked about in every HVAC forum online. Picture the same failure walking into 3 different houses on the same street, same July afternoon. Identical humming units, identical dead fans, identical warm air, and 3 completely different outcomes based purely on knowledge. The mechanism is markup, layered on fear, layered on urgency. In House 1, the homeowner knows nothing, panics, and signs a $16,000 replacement financed at 9% over 10 years, a real cost north of $22,000 with interest. In House 2, they call a fair tech and pay $200. In House 3, they grab a $30 part and a multimeter and fix it before dinner. Same broken part, a spread from $30 to $22,000. If you're wondering how that's even legal, so is everyone else. But it is, because nothing on that quote is technically fraud. It's a legitimate part at an inflated price, plus a legitimate replacement option offered under manufactured pressure. The trick lives in the gap between what's legal and what's honest. Here's the dense reality in numbers. A capacitor is roughly the size of a soda can, weighs under a pound, and contains maybe $2 of raw materials. It's the single most common HVAC failure. Technicians replace them constantly, more than any other single part, which means this exact $8 versus $16,000 decision plays out in millions of homes every single cooling season. That's not a rare edge case, that's the default American summer. The cheapest part in your system carries the biggest price gap in the industry. That's not an accident, it's the design. Next, follow the money one layer deeper, into the labor rates and diagnostic fees that hide the same trick in plain sight. The cheapest failures hide the biggest markups, and knowing which is how you win. Run the numbers before you sign, then tell them no.